And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. In a really good mood today. This is one of those, not often, but in a really good mood today. I think it had something to do with I went and I cast my ballot. I got it in the mail day before yesterday. I screwed it up. I used a blue pen instead of a black pen, so I had to go over to the county elections office and request a new ballot. To which the woman told me, "Don't worry about it. Blue is fine. You're perfectly fine." And she helped me put it in the envelope and made sure that it was well done and ready to be counted, hand marked, turned in person. And ready to be counted. And that bit of empowerment that, we're now actually in the movement stage to throwing the crazy guy out of the White House. And I guess, look, part of me goes, I happened to catch Trump talking. And every other day I listen to Trump rambling on and idiotic statements and, completely nowhere near a point half the time, rambling incoherently, kind of like, someone's suffering. And I don't mean this to be wrong, but suffering from Alzheimer's and just, what you would assume, someone who spent way too much time watching Fox News and is suffering from a bit of Alzheimer's. This is what we've got, a guy who's just angry, been angry his whole life. He was the get off my lawn guy. He was the curmudgeon when he was 20. And now he's got Alzheimer's, and now he's even angrier still and hopped up on steroids. So he's got the roid rage going and diarrhea of the mouth, just all this insanity coming out. And I'll be honest, I started listening to it and I go, you know what? I've cast my ballot, and I'm hoping millions of people will follow me and vote for Joe Biden because it will stop. I mean, it will stop. I mean, that bit of happiness. I mean, here's what I'm talking about. He was on with Sean Hannity last night. Going on about the environment and, crazy Bernie and AOC. And there was just this one clip that I played like twice because I couldn't believe all of the craziness just in a 1 minute clip. So I wanted to share it because this actually made me go, when Joe Biden's president, we're never going to hear this again. We're never going to hear the president of the United States go on like this.
I don't even think they had any experience in the environment. But this was a deal conceived of, and the real price is $100 trillion. That's more money that this country could make in 100 years if things went well, okay? I mean, they literally want to take buildings down and rebuild them with tiny little windows, okay? Little windows so you can't see out, so you can't see the light. And the whole thing is so crazy. It's such a crazy thing. And take a look. And Biden agreed to this with Crazy Bernie because, they have the manifesto. They've agreed to most of these things. And it's going to cost more money. Our country will be a ninth world country, not a third world country, a ninth world country. We won't have energies. Look at what's happening with the rolling blackouts in California. Look at where California is going to have to ration water. You know why? Because they send millions of gallons of water out to sea, out to the Pacific, because they want to take care of certain little tiny fish that aren't doing very well without water, to be honest with you. But it's a very sad thing that's happening. It's no common sense. Even the fire.
Oh, God. Little tiny fishes. And here's the thing. If I'm Hannity, and Hannity deserves every dollar that they're paying him. He's clearly sold his soul. He deserves every penny for having to sit and listen to that blather without going, what in the Sam Hill are you talking about? Without saying, do you have any idea what you just said? We're going to be a ninth world country? I mean, is this one of those Bush moments? Like Bush said, we're 10th in internet, and that's 10 spaces too low. Which, I don't figure it out. It's a math thing. You might have to figure that out. And clearly he's not good at math. I mean, he thinks he's a billionaire. Clearly not good at math. What about the fourth? What about the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth world countries? Are we going to be worse than them? In fact, who are the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth world countries? Do we have a list of those? Can we compare? And then, $100 trillion. You're going to cost $100 trillion. Well, Mike Pence just said on Wednesday during the debate, it was going to cost $2 trillion. So they don't even know what their numbers are. And what's interesting is he goes, well, we wouldn't make that in 100 years. Well, our economy is about somewhere around $19 to $20 trillion a year before the Trump collapse. So again, the bad math thing, we could, honestly and truthfully, if let's just for argument's sake, it did cost $100 trillion, just for argument's sake. We've run $1 trillion deficit every year that Trump has been president. We could pay for it. Yes. And we could have tiny little windows, which again, what the hell is he talking about? Tiny little windows. So, you go through this, that's 1 minute of it. And today, during the Rush Limbaugh show, he did 2 hours of that, dropped the F-bomb and everything. I mean, it was crazy old guy on roids, losing his mind, and an audience sitting there listening. And you know what made me feel even better? I didn't listen to a thing of it. And I kept going, in a couple of months, January 20th, at 12:01, we're not going to have to hear this anymore. In fact, the internal polling I'm seeing now shows it's probably going to be such a landslide that he's going to slink out of town before the election. Because keep talking. I hope Limbaugh brings him back next week. He should do the whole week. In fact, Limbaugh can take the week off. Just let Trump keep talking. Let him keep saying this dumb stuff because, look, the faithful are listening. And at some point, the more they hear him blather on, the more idiocy we hear coming out of his mouth, maybe even they'll get it. Maybe they'll even want the pain to stop. And look, you listen to just that 1 minute. And I could go hours on this stuff. And you wonder why Nancy Pelosi has begun to discuss invoking the 25th Amendment. And for all those bad things I said about Nancy Pelosi over the years, I take some of them back now. This actually took some stones to do. Good on you, Nancy. Move forward with the 25th Amendment. This guy clearly unhinged, clearly off the beaten path, and clearly someone who is a clear and present danger to our country. I mean, it's wow. And the thing is look, crazy is gripping us. And I'm hoping, look, Joe wasn't my candidate. Joe was my fifth choice. Like Joe Biden a lot. I voted for him happily, enthusiastically voted for Joe Biden today. Could not wait to drop my ballot in the box. Because all of this craziness, all of the crazies now feel emboldened. And yesterday we talked about the story of the militia nuts who wanted to kidnap the Michigan governor. We now hear, oh God, another one of these. How do these people get elected? Crazy people vote for them. The sheriff in Barr County, Michigan, Dar Leaf. I don't know who names your child Dar, but okay. Dar Leaf is the sheriff and a crazy looking guy at that. But evidently he was anti-masker, married up to those people screaming at the Capitol with their guns, spoke at a couple of their events, was on stage with a couple of them that got arrested. He didn't believe that they're good old boys. Yeah, that's why they wanted to. He doesn't believe that they wanted to kidnap her. Nope. He doesn't want to kidnap her. No. They were going to arrest her. See, there's a difference there. There's a difference. They weren't going to go and kidnap her. They were patriots, and they were going to arrest her and then take her to Wisconsin, where they would then try her for treason. He doesn't go to where the next state is because the next step is executing her. But I guess he didn't want to get them that far into trouble because, well, attempted premeditated murder, there's something there too, right? But we know that's where this was going. And again, as I said, I cast my ballot today going, maybe this insanity stops. Maybe we don't have this stuff going on every day. Maybe in the longest functioning democracy in the history of civilization, maybe we don't have people wanting to kidnap elected officials and then take them to another state to try and execute them. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't have a bunch of people running around like Gomer Pyle, and I know I'm seriously dating myself. But maybe we don't have, the Mayberry character running around going, citizens arrest. Maybe we don't have that. I mean, maybe in Michigan, that's how they view themselves, that backward. But that's why today I cast my ballot. And it feels great. And this is why I'm telling everybody, you got in Pennsylvania, anyone in Pennsylvania, you got until the 18th of October to register, go online, do it real simple. Get your ballot, cast your ballot, grab the empowerment. I mean, the sense that you're going to help change this country and move it in the right direction. I'm full of that today, and I want it for everybody. It's kind of like a religion now, or a drug, whichever. The fact that we might have at some point in the near future the euphoria of sanity. Yes. And what we won't have is idiocy. Now, Donald Trump tomorrow, evidently going to have hundreds of people at the White House, going to have another super spreader event. Yay. But we're going to have a law and order moment. And, again, law and order, this has been kind of a polar issue. And, I got into this back and forth with, someone who said, well, you liberals, they want to defund the police. And, we want more police. And I'm going, no, I support the police when they're not wrong. Can we agree? Can everybody agree on that we support the police when they're not doing wrong things? And can we also agree that when they do wrong things, we hold them accountable? Can we? I know in this day and age, Herculean leap to get there. That when they're doing their job, we respect them. We treat them with the dignity that they deserve and the respect that they deserve. We fully fund them, make sure that they have all of their needs met. But when they booger something up, when they kick in the wrong person's door, and they shoot them in their chair, or they kick in the door and shoot a woman in her bed, or they put their knee in someone's neck for almost 9 minutes, can we not say that that's wrong and they should be held accountable, and then actually hold them accountable? Seems simple to me. And I'm hoping January 20th, 12:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Sanity restored. I mean, from this point forward, that should be Biden's campaign. Look, all else being equal, 2 hours on the Limbaugh show just blathering on like an idiot, that'll stop. Every night on Fox News, blathering on like an idiot, it'll stop. The 4 a.m. tweets, it'll stop. It'll stop. And, of course, super spreader events will stop. Can you believe? I mean, they just had their major super spreader event in the Rose Garden. Now they're going to do it over in the South Lawn. Hundreds of people, and it's going to be under the guise of law and order because, look, all we've got left is to scare the hell out of people. That's it. That's all. MS-13s around every corner, and the others are coming for you. They're gonna invade your suburbs. Well, the reality is most people just want this insanity to stop. Most people want to be able to put food on their tables and make sure that they can keep a roof over their kids' heads. And sadly, we're heading towards we're heading towards the period that all experts have said from the beginning of this pandemic is going to be the most dangerous. And that's the next couple of months. Flu season this time of year. And will we overblow our capacity to care for people with our medical system? That's always been the concern. And at least it's always been what I've been saying is the concern, and what I've been told is the concern, that we're going to blow everything out and we're not going to be able to handle it. And people are needlessly going to suffer and die. At a time, simultaneously, by the way, that they're going after destroying healthcare while simultaneously claiming that they care about pre-existing conditions, while not actually knowing what any of those are. It's kind of crazy. And now I guess a stimulus deal is back on. It was off. It's back on. It's going to be bigger. This is actually the funny thing. Other thing today. Donald Trump said he wants an even bigger stimulus than anyone has put out, and he wants a $1.8 trillion stimulus. The Democrats back in May passed the HEROES Act, $3.4 trillion. Last time I checked, and it's been a while since I've done third grade math, but last time I checked, 3.4 was greater than 1.8. This, however, could explain why Donald Trump claims he's a billionaire, but really isn't, and that's because he's just really crappy at math. Much like we're never going to make $100 trillion a year in 100 years. Mind-blowingly ignorant. But you heard it come out of his mouth. So we'll see. We'll see what Mitch McConnell does, because Mitch McConnell is saying there's not going to be any stimulus. McConnell's playing the long game. He already knows his party's going to get slaughtered. Ted Cruz came out and said it's going to be a bloodbath, much like it was after Watergate. They're already prepping. And the last thing they've got left, the last thing the cons got, the last arrow in the quiver, is ramming through Amy Coney Barrett, who evidently didn't bother to tell anyone that she'd done a bunch of speeches to anti-abortion groups. Well, oops, I guess I forgot to put that on the disclosure, which I got to be honest is a very Trumpian thing to do, since, well, most of their people forget to fill out the form properly. And yet she's going to be on the Supreme Court. So much fun, but lots to get to today. Really good mood. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On the Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1823. That was the day abolitionist and women's suffragist Mary Ann Shadd Cary was born. Her parents were free blacks of color in the slave state of Delaware. They were involved with many prominent abolitionists and active in the Underground Railroad. The family moved to Pennsylvania, where Mary and her siblings were educated in Quaker schools. As a young woman, Mary became a teacher and returned to Wilmington, Delaware, where she opened a school for black children. Once the Fugitive Slave Law was passed in 1850, Mary and many other free blacks fled to Canada to safely continue their abolitionist work. She opened a school for fugitive slaves in Windsor, Ontario, just across the river from Detroit. Mary soon came under fire in the local press for insisting the school be racially integrated. She responded by starting her own newspaper, the Provincial Freeman. She and her husband Thomas often traveled to the United States to continue their anti-slavery work. They were present at John Brown's 1858 Constitutional Convention. Mary worked with Osborne Perry Anderson to publish his 1861 memoir, A Voice from Harper's Ferry. Anderson had participated in Brown's raid and was the lone African-American survivor. After her husband's death, Mary returned to the United States with her children to help recruit black soldiers for the Union Army. Once the Civil War was over, Mary moved to Washington, D.C. to teach. She enrolled in Howard University, where she earned a law degree. There, she joined the National Women's Suffrage Association and worked with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. She continued to advocate for civil rights and women's equality until her death in 1893. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So some other good news. Look, it's a good news day. I'm hoping, as I said, I cast my ballot. I'm ready to throw the bum out. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I also see that Twitter is now saying that they're going to flag any premature claims of who won the 2020 election. So by me saying today Joe Biden won, maybe they'll flag my claim, but hopefully they'll be closer to the election. But they also said they're going to clamp down on misinformation. And my first thought is the best way to do that is, just delete Donald Trump's account. I mean, nothing but misinformation, top to bottom. And now with the roid rage he's got going on, it's all in caps, hard to read. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the craziness that we've seen this past week and maybe what the next few have to offer. I've asked our good friend David Yankovich to come talk with us. David's a fantastic digital strategist and one of my favorite people on the interwebs. David, thanks for taking time for us.
Just on the interwebs? I thought that was one of your favorite people in the whole world.
Let's not get carried away. You set yourself up for that one, buddy.
I did. I totally did. I did.
So Twitter's gonna clamp down on misinformation. That's only about 5 years too late. Maybe Facebook could think about it too.
Yeah, I don't buy it anyway. The thing is are they going to clamp down on misinformation that they deem as misinformation? Or are they going to continue hitting the left and taking down videos that, are getting flagged by the right and doing that stuff? Or are they actually going to do misinformation and start monitoring this and doing something? I have no faith in Twitter or Facebook or any of these social media companies to do the right thing.
Yeah, see, I'm always uneasy with censorship. And Facebook just announced that they're not going to allow the Q kooks to go there anymore. And again, I always feel uneasy when you start censoring things. But if it had to happen to Q kooks, I guess I'm still not okay with it.
Here's the thing: is it something that is harming or harmful? So like if you have a cult that is telling everybody to drink the Kool-Aid, yeah, they should be on there. Q. There's a lot of misinformation and anti-American sentiment coming out of there and, everything else. And, I mean, there are people that are getting harmed. Drink the bleach, that's, what we're seeing. So, I mean, I can see, like, the censorship on when it's a public health hazard. And
like yelling fire in a crowded theater. I get that. But, if you're dumb enough to drink the bleach, I think we can do without you.
Well, you said it, not me, my friend.
At some point, you got to thin the herd. What's interesting is you didn't see Donald Trump drink the bleach or shove the light up his behind.
Oh no, of course not. He went and drank the stem cells. And everything that his party's against is in that medicine. First off, it's aborted fetal tissue. That for the stem cells, it is $5,000 per pill. Like it's every single thing that they talk about, being against and everything else, and here we are. So, I mean, nothing matters on the right anymore. It's all it's all entertainment. That's what this is to them. It's WWE wrestling. You scream loud. You're painted orange. You're sweaty. You're saying stupid things, and people watch. And that's what's happening. That's the president we have, and that's the senator from South Carolina. That's that's the Republican Party now.
Yeah,
basically the WWE.
That's an excellent analogy. You're spot on with that because I listened to some of his spiel with Hannity last night about we're a ninth world country and how the Democrats the California takes all their water and sends it out to the ocean to save little fishes. Which you go, what the hell are you talking about? And then today, whatever that was for 2 hours on Limbaugh's show, dropping the F-bomb and all the other blathering and mumbling and bumbling that went on. I just keep going, just keep talking because maybe at some point. People are going to finally wake up to you're a blithering idiot.
Well, what was the thing you said yesterday or the day before about little tiny houses with little tiny windows?
Yeah.
And then little tiny fish in the water. And yeah, I mean, it's very obvious. And I don't like Donald Trump, and everybody knows that. I'm pretty well known for that. But I will say it really is terrible and disheartening to see that we have a president of the United States that has completely become unglued in front of everybody. And like, no one's talking about this as a national security threat. No one's talking about this as, for what it truly is, just, I mean, if other countries are watching this right now, they're plotting, and they're seeing that we have a president that's completely unhinged, and there's no leader at the gate or nobody, at the wheel here at all. And on the other side of it, this is a major mental health crisis, and we're watching basically, somebody deteriorate in front of us. And if this was anybody else, and when you see celebrities do this, they have to go get help. They have to go to rehab. They have to go and get, we've seen it over the years with, Britney Spears or Amanda Bynes or, any of the people out there who have had mental health issues publicly. And we're seeing that with Donald Trump right now, and that's pretty much beyond dispute at this point. But because he's the president, what are you going to do? You can't just grab him and do it. And the one thing that's put into the Constitution that we have is the 25th Amendment. And, everybody in his circle is obviously just too much of a coward for that and has been for 3 years. But at this point right now, we have a president just completely spinning out of control in the last weeks of an election. And, all hell could break loose. I have no idea what's going to happen.
No, that's the thing. The next several weeks are going to be, and then from election day till the time where he hopefully leaves peacefully. I've been saying since inauguration day, that's going to be the most dangerous period in our country's history, because I believe he'll be even more unglued. Hopefully off the roids. Hopefully not suffering from the roid rage like I think he is now. But I fear some troubled waters ahead.
Yeah, I do too. And, here's the thing is, everybody keeps telling me that, like, Trump has to lose. And he does, and I'm with that. But the scariest scenario to me isn't Trump winning the presidency. It is us losing the Senate and the House, or especially not getting the Senate. If we have that and Trump wins, that's our safety net. Obviously, I want to take Trump out of the White House as fast as we possibly can. But on the other side, like, we have to, no matter what, have the Senate going into this election. We have to take it. We have so many great candidates out there that are running in really tight races. We're competing everywhere. Focusing just on the presidential election isn't enough. We've seen what they've done with, Obama when he couldn't get things done as president, and a Stonewall. Did you really want Mitch McConnell as Senate Majority Leader? So, there's that piece of this. But then also, we have to get things done. And Joe Biden going into this, if he wins, he's going to have to probably be the most progressive president, I think, since FDR, considering what we're going to have to face. He's got obviously a major pandemic that is killing, hundreds of thousands of Americans. By that point, it's going to be almost half a million Americans will probably be gone, or maybe less, but it'll be close. And he's going to have an economic, deterioration that's happening on a scale that I don't think we've ever seen before. You're going to have auto industries and entire industries everywhere. Not just that, but, the service industries, the entertainment industries, and airlines, and everything is going to be going. Biden, if he becomes president, is going to have to go in on day one and fight against the economics. He's going to have to fight against pandemics. We're going to have to figure out what to do with Russia and Iran for putting bounties on our troops. And we're going to have to be, get back into the Paris, Accords and really geopolitically, on the world stage, get a handle on everything. And this is going to come down to this man in this moment. And so, there's a lot of people out there that I hear from the far left that are like, he's too corporate and he's too this. And I don't think we're going to have a choice in this one. I think it's going to be too bad where it's, we're going to have to make some major investments into everything right off the bat. Otherwise, I think we're going to see some really bad stuff happen. And then on the Trump side of this, and whether he refuses to go and everything that's happening there, I have no idea how that's going to go. I just hope that people show up in such numbers that they can't manipulate or dispute it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And even if he does want to send his campaign workers into the polling places, which they've said in Philadelphia, completely not going to happen, not legal to do, but they want to. They want their campaign people right there hovering over folks. But this is one of these moments where, like I said at the beginning, I'm feeling good today because I cast my ballot today. I got it in the mail. I filled it out, screwed it up at first. I used the wrong color pen. Damn it! But I took it in and I fixed it and I put my ballot in the mailbox and this sense of empowerment that we're gonna change things. We're gonna right this ship. We're gonna take the right path. We're gonna undo the damage. It's gonna be a lot of work, but we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really am. I feel great. I think that, we're competing everywhere right now. We got again, I mean, just going through the numbers, but Texas, we're down by 1 or 2 right now. We're competing in Maine. We're competing in South Carolina. We're winning in Arizona. Alabama's tied. We're supposed to be down 30 points down there again. All across the country. I mean,
South
even,
Carolina.
Mississippi.
South Carolina. To get Lindsey Graham out would be an incredible thing.
Oh, I would love it. Just to hear the concession speech on that one, I would enjoy.
No, there won't be a concession speech. He'll go all Trump on that. But the fact that he bailed on on a second debate with Harrison, and everyone's saying, oh, it's because he's got COVID. I go, he doesn't have any COVID. He's got no COVID. He's got, I don't want to get my butt kicked itis.
Yeah, he got I don't want to be called, or I don't want to be told to be a man in front of everybody again itis. That's what happened. He just got embarrassed, and yeah, I mean, and that's what we're seeing across the country. So I feel pretty darn good too. I don't know if I can say I don't know how far my cussing can go. I know Trump can say it, but I can't.
Evidently, the F word is now perfectly FCC friendly. Our president said it, and that's going to be my defense the next time Tom Arnold comes on and drops the F bomb. I'm going to say, hey, if Donnie can get away with it, there's precedence, man.
I gotta tell you, Tom is one of the best dudes in the world. Anything ever happens, he will be the first person to call you up and make sure you're okay. He's a good dude, but yeah, he definitely has the profanity going for sure. Him and Sarah.
Yeah, they both have they both dig into the basket of colorful. Let's put it that way. Let's take a look back real quick. I want to get your thoughts on the VP debate outside of the fly, because I don't want to talk about the fly anymore. Because that seems to dominate the whole things. Let me get your thoughts on how that went.
I mean, here's my thing: is I think that everybody went into that debate and did what they had to do. From a political operative side, right? You have if I'm advising Pence, it's going there and just defend the record and don't make news. And the only news that was made, and this is how good of a job he did at not making news, that the fly in his busted eye ended up getting more news than he did in the comments he made.
Yeah.
That's all he had to do in this debate. Just go in there and just don't do anything, do no harm. And in Kamala, she had to go in there and she had to attack the president, and she had to, basically show that she is ready to lead if something were to happen. I think she showcased both of those things pretty well.
Yeah, we did a panel afterwards, and one of the guys we had on, Greg Hurwitz, he said, the old Ginger Rogers line that, she had to do everything Fred Astaire had to do, but only do it backwards and in high heels. And that kind of applied there.
Yep, that's exactly it, and she did it. And, one thing, though, and it sounds cheesy and it sounds like I'm full of crap when I say it, but, the actual thing that kept coming back to me is I can't imagine how many little girls are watching her right now. And, 25, 30 years down the line, when we're looking back in politics and hopefully things are better, there's going to be a woman running for president or Senate and saying that was the moment that she realized she could do it too. We've never seen a black woman on a debate stage like that in a VP debate, and we've never, this isn't happening. We had Hillary running for president, but this was different too. And I hope that people can kind of recognize that was a really big moment. And I mean, on her side of it, I think that Senator Harris did a great job. And Pence on his side with what he had to come in with, that's the thing that's really terrifying about him, is that he is able to articulate Trump's crazy. I don't know why they don't use him more to do it.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And to be the person that is the spokesman of this, because, I mean, he did a terrifying job of, being able to fake everything that they've done and put a bow on it. So, I mean, that's kind of my takeaway from the VP debate. I mean, here's the thing: that's the lowest impact possible, except in 2014, so 2012 when Biden had to come through after Obama had the first bad debate, and I think that kind of righted the campaign a lot. And then, obviously, and this one here, I think was a pretty big moment, because this is probably the last debate that we're going to see, because the president is too insane to be able to stand on a debate stage for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be one more. I know they canceled the next one on the 15th because Trump claims he didn't want to do a virtual one because he doesn't want to be turned off. Which I'm going, I'm of the mindset they should put him in game show booths and you're only allowed to talk when the light goes on.
Just keep him in the dark.
That's it. The light comes on, speak. Yeah, like a parrot. You put a blanket over its cage. There you go.
It reminds me of those little what was that from Big, the machine where you put the quarter in and did like a fortune teller, like it just when the lights all come on and then you turn the light back off and it's just down.
Yeah, Exactly. I mean, that's the
Was it Zoltan? Zoltron?
oh Zoltar from the Big movie.
Yeah, big. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
That's,
the old
that's
Tom
what it
Hanks
reminds me
movie.
of.
Yeah, okay. I can see
You
that.
know, put a quarter in and see the light come on and get your Trump quote.
Does it have to be lucid? I mean, because honestly,
No.
yeah, and look,
talk about-
I don't want to if he's truly cognitively impaired, I don't want to beat up on someone who's suffering from Alzheimer's. But he just these last couple of days, looking at the statements that have come out, the idiocy. I thank God I got COVID. COVID made me better. All of this stuff that is really just kooky as can be, is coming out of the mouth of the most powerful man in the world.
Well, I want to say this though about so you brought up an interesting point here. Like you're saying that that's all kooky, but think about this in the sense of people who are independent, who truly, and there are people out there who are independent who are undecided still. Not a lot of them, but there are, and they hear before the president and all the embarrassing things, and then he gets COVID, and all of a sudden now he's like, and say they're religious and they're from the right or whatever, but this is God's gift coming down, whatever. But like to them, what they're hearing is the president has seen the light on some of this stuff, and I'm really happy about that, blah, 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 and like all these crazy things that you're talking about to other people aren't crazy. They're seeing this as a change in the president's demeanor on COVID. And, they're seeing that he's changing the way that he's talked about this from before and evolving on this. I mean, I'm driving down the road down here in Florida on the expressway, and there's billboards, and it's, saying, God sent Donald Trump to us. God sent COVID to Trump.
Wow.
And it's for him. And that's a part of the message. They, for the evangelicals and for Christian voters out there for Trump is that, he got this and now he understands it better. And that's the messaging that scares me, because there's some people out there that this might actually turn out the vote rather than turn off the vote like the majority of the country, because they're not getting the same news and from the same place that we are.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I understand, but it scares me to no end, and I'm worried about it. But David, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Great talking with you. Look forward to having you get back here again real soon.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
Good stuff. Our good friend David Yankovic. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. This day in labor history, the year was 1997. That was the day that a group of female employees at the investment firm Smith Barney came to a tentative agreement to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit against the firm. Smith Barney was one of the oldest Wall Street firms, with a reputation for respectability. But behind closed doors, the firm more resembled what the Chicago Tribune described as a fraternity house atmosphere. The accounts women told of their treatment at the firm were lewd and disgusting. In the basement of the Garden City, New York office, there was a room called the Boom Boom Room, where female employees were told to entertain clients. Fed up with this treatment, more than 20 women joined together and filed a class action lawsuit. To settle the suit, the firm agreed to invest $15 million in diversity training, along with settlements to each of the harassed women. Sexual harassment of women in the financial industry was not only a problem at Smith Barney. Female brokers in Chicago filed a suit against Merrill Lynch, who agreed to a settlement with the plaintiffs. Smith Barney also did not learn their lesson. Just over a decade later, the firm again settled another sexual harassment suit to the tune of $33 million. This time, according to Forbes magazine, the suit was filed by 4 female brokers who accused Smith Barney of preventing them from competing fairly for new accounts, promotions and pay, and depriving women of equal training and sales support. Over the course of 15 years, Merrill Lynch paid out almost $500 million in discrimination suits to women and minority brokers. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
You know, I completely understand where David's coming from on that. Because, you know, that was the fear when they announced he had it. That he was going to get the best care, you know, money could possibly buy. He was going to get the drugs that none of us have access to. And on the other side of it, he was going to be just fine. That he was going to make it through, and that he was going to come through and say, look, I did it. This was all predictable. And, you know, and I said this, you know, weeks ago that, you know, this is probably where we're going to go. He's going to come through it, and they're going to prop him up. They're going to pump him full of drugs, which, you know, I got to tell you, you know, listening to him talk, the roid rage is heavy with that one. And now we're going to go through predictably what you know is coming. The big event on the South Lawn tomorrow, hundreds of people. You know, the pressure is going to be there not to wear masks. The pressure is going to be there to you know, we're going through this. And in fact, you know, at the beginning of this whole pandemic, I said, eventually, because it's just how we are as a country, we're going to have to plow through this. We're going to lose a bunch of people along the way. And it's going to be extremely costly. It's going to be harmful. But unfortunately, we're going to have to because of who our leaders are. And the message that's coming out right now, the message coming out of Trump right now, is this isn't a big deal. Don't worry about it. Not a big deal. I got it. Made me better. Made me better. I mean, it wasn't just that I got it and I made it through and thank goodness, thank God I made it through. And, you know, it was hard, but, you know, thanks to our medicine and the doctors, it was, you know, they pulled me through. No. It was, I've got super genes. I don't know what it is. I'm wonderful. And, you know, so no more of the other stuff. No more concerns about social distancing or any of that stuff. It's just like the flu now. And this is what you're seeing. This is what you're seeing. This is the message. And it's only going to get worse as the days and weeks go on. Unless something really bad happens. The wild card in this for me is Chris Christie. Chris Christie is still in the hospital. Day 6 in the hospital, as I understand. They say the average length of stay in the hospital is 5 days for someone who has COVID. You hit that 6th day. Christie takes a turn for a worse. You then hear, well, you know, he's got all those other problems. And he does, and clearly. But so do 130 million other Americans who have pre-existing conditions. So do a lot of seniors who have, you know, COPD and all kinds of ailments that this is going to harm them. And what you have is a president who, you know, clearly is taking this less serious now than he was even before. So going to be interesting to see how this plays out for me. Now, look, I don't discount the messaging. I get it. I know they're the hyper religious out there who believe that, you know, I actually had one person tell me that the virus was sent here because, again, the gay marriage and the abortion stuff, which they're tickled pink over Amy Coney Barrett, who is going to do away with all that. You know, we're gonna force women back into the alleys with the coat hangers, and we're gonna force, you know, the gays back into the closets and the blacks back into the fields. We're gonna do all that. That's the vision. With a 6-3 court, that's what they want. And look, you give them credit; they're honest for it. But, you know, I had, you know, one of these back and forths about, you know, this extreme religious view, and what kind of a country do you want to live in? We're in a moment where, what kind of a country do we want to live in? Do we want to live in that world again? Do we want to go backwards? I don't want that for my daughters. I don't want that for my son. I don't want that for the future generations of this country to have to go through the kind of suffering that fortunately I've only had to read about. I mean, we're on that bubble right now. And last night one of our guests said, "Look, if Trump wins and we continue the policies and we don't get the virus under control, we are going to hit a depression. We are going to go into a depression. The economy will spiral out of control and things will stop. People are going to lose their jobs, industries will shut down, and we will have real problems." And the Republicans are incapable of dealing with that. I mean, the sad reality is the Democrats are willing to give Donald Trump anything he wants. Anything he wants. To get money to the states, to get money into people's pockets, to keep the economy propped up. I mean, stop and think about that for a second. Stop and think about the reality of what I just said, and then go back just a couple of years to when the shoe was on the other foot, and the Republicans would give nothing, not a single vote. Not a single vote for the stimulus that was needed in 2009. As meager as it was, it should have been much chunkier, much bigger, along the lines of what we gave out here over this last stimulus. We should have had a massive shock to the economy to get people back to work. But we didn't. And what did we end up with? We ended up with millions of people losing their homes, their insurance, their savings, and just about now getting their footing, only to have this collapse sweep their feet out from under them again. And at the end of it, you go, what does it take to realize that conservative ideology is a failure? Conservative economics is a failure. Supply side voodoo economics is a failure. Tax cuts for the very wealthy, deregulation, failure for average everyday working people. It's great for the wealthy. Again, if you go back to the premise that I do, which is government decides who gets what, the wealthy could not be happier. And if you're in the top, I'll say 25% in this country, Donald Trump's your guy. His tax cuts were fabulous for you. Deregulation's great for you because you're not poisoning your backyard. It's somebody else's problem. But everybody else, man, be worried. And this most recent Supreme Court nominee, we now find what we knew. Look, there's no secret. There really isn't. And for Amy Coney Barrett to hide the fact that she gave speeches to anti-abortion groups just shows me that, really, it shows me that she's dishonest in that view. Everybody knows she's the vote that's going to overturn Roe. We know that. There's no question. There is literally no question. There's no way Susan Collins can go, "Oh, I looked into her eyes and she told me she wouldn't." There's none of that. There's no way she can Kavanaugh this. In fact, they're going the other way, where you've got Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, saying that he's going to look every senator in the eye and he's going to make them promise not to have a religious test. We're not going to make this about a religious test. We're not going to have. You go, but isn't that a religious test? I mean, isn't that what you're doing by saying you can't have a religious test? Kind of saying it's a religious test? Because as far off the beaten path as she may be from mainstream religiosity, shouldn't that be something we question? Because guess what? Her rulings are going to affect all of us, of every faith and of every non-faith. The eyes of the law are supposed to be blind. Lady Justice is blindfolded. When you weigh down one side of the scale with ideological belief of one way or the other, That's a problem for us. Now, my problems with her are much bigger than Roe. That's a big problem. But states can go. I think states can go around that. The fight will then go to the states. My problem with her is, overwhelmingly, she's a corporatist. Overwhelmingly, the pendulum of corporate power and moneyed power will continue and expand. And that is bad for democracy. That's bad for where we are as a country. And if you look at what the vice president, did over, during the debate, he didn't say it. He didn't say she was going to overturn Roe. It danced around the issue, but everybody knows it. It is the open secret. And now they're going to look. The Republicans are doing what they can do to shield her from those questions. In fact, there's part of me that goes, at some point they adjourn early and say, we're done. We're just going to have a vote. Because the fix is already in. They know they're going to get creamed in November. They know the election is going to go against them. And I'll tell you, up until a couple of weeks ago, I was still in this place where, it's going to be a tight race. It's going to be close. I think Trump's behavior these last couple of days, I think a lot of this stuff around him getting the virus and his reaction, I think this is going to wake people up and move folks in a different direction. And, when you have, someone like Ted Cruz coming out and saying that it's going to be a bloodbath of Watergate proportions, he's privy to all of their internal polling. He knows what they're expecting. And for him to come out and say that doesn't look good for him. Doesn't look good at all. But the sad thing is it's more than just about sweeping them out. It's about what are we going to do to turn things around? What's the agenda going forward? And I think Biden has some good ideas. We have to get the virus under control. That has to happen. We have to do some infrastructure. We have to change the way we use fuel. There's a lot of things we can do in a smart way. And I've been having this conversation, and we're moving to a new platform, which is I've decided part of what I want to do in the new year is try and talk to the other side a little more. Try and engage in some kind of discussion. We have Joe Walsh on the program occasionally, and Joe and I have a good rapport. And I want this to be about issues. I want this to be about how do we move the country forward, solving real problems. Because right now, what's going on? People on the sidewalks throwing things at each other. That's not helpful. That's not getting us anywhere. That's the status quo. And who benefits from the status quo? The very wealthy. The people who don't want things to change are the ones who benefit from this. Seeing us, we the working people of this country, so divided and pitted against one another that we're literally at this moment, there are people wanting and willing to shoot and kill each other in the streets. There are people willing to kidnap a governor because they don't agree with the policies. They've so worked themselves up into a frenzy. They've so gotten themselves all lathered up in the panties that this is what their reaction. So the questions then become, how do we unravel this? How do we walk this back? Or is it possible? And I don't know. But in the new year, we're going to give it a try. Because I think you have to. I think we have to make an honest try at reaching out to these Trump supporters. And I know people are going, oh, you're crazy, Rick. And I'm one of them. I'm one of them who thinks I'm crazy. But it's something that has to be attempted. And maybe we're going to get down the road and find out there's just no way we can possibly figure out how to come back together. Hoping I'm wrong. But we've been in these moments before. And like I said at the beginning, I'm in a good mood because I'm hopeful. I'm in a good mood because I can see that there might be that light at the end of the tunnel. And I know, look, I get these messages from people all the time that, they're depressed, they're angry, they're frustrated. There was somebody on Twitter the other day that just put out how depressed and how badly they're hurting. And I quick sent him a direct message saying, hey, if you need to talk, you need to shoot me a message. It's not going to be that bad. We're going to get through this. And I truly believe that. And look, as I went and I cast my ballot today, it was reaffirming that we still have institution in place. We just have to defend it. We still have the methods by which we change our leadership in a peaceful manner. And I'll tell you, I was a little disturbed that Pence did not say that there would be a peaceful transition of power. I'll be honest. A little disturbed by it. Thought better of Pence. But that's why it's so important. Here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, you've got until October 18th to register. Real simple to do. You can do it online. You can go to the elections office. I think you can even go to the DMV still, if the Bureau of Motor Vehicles or the Department of Motor Vehicles, whatever we're calling it these days. You can go there even. Register to vote. Get your ballot. Cast your ballot. It's empowering. And I just felt it's one of those things. And then, more importantly than just casting a ballot, because my mind immediately goes, okay, November's coming, November 3rd's coming, election night. I'm hoping for good news election night when it's decided overwhelmingly. And then we start planning on what's going to happen January 20th. How do we hit the ground running and make the changes that need to be changed? Because, and I said this back when Obama became president, don't go home. Now's the time to do even more organizing. Now's the time to do even more pushing and demanding things get done. Now's that time. Now's that time to organize and to make sure that the progress we want is the progress we get. Sadly, too many people stayed home in the last election, and we got the government we deserved. What we see out of Trump is what we've deserved by being complacent. We can right this ship. We can send Trump back to where he belongs. I'm hoping jail. But we have that power. That's the great thing about this country. We have the power to make the changes we want. And as I always say, you want to change the world? Start by making your little piece of it as good as it can be. Just my thoughts. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Let's take a quick break. Right back.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1888. That was the day that the United Hebrew Trades was founded in New York City. The new effort was patterned after the United German Trades. The goal of the organization was to organize Yiddish-speaking workers. Individual Jewish workers had been active in the burgeoning U.S. trade union movement since the 1850s. But the United Hebrew Trades marked the first time for such a broad-based collective effort to organize Jewish workers. 3 of the early founders were Bernard Weinstein, Morris Hillquit, and Abe Kane. Weinstein was a young shirt maker turned union activist. Morris Hillquit would become one of the leaders of the American Socialist Party in the United States. Hillquit was born in Latvia and moved with his family to the Lower East Side of New York. Like many Jewish workers, Hillquit found a job in the city's garment industry. He later graduated from law school. Abe Kane was born in Belarus. He was one of the leading voices in Jewish journalism in the United States. In 1877, he founded the newspaper, the Jewish Daily Forward, which still exists today. Under the leadership of these men, the United Hebrew Trades quickly became a presence in New York City. In March of 1890, 4,000 Jewish workers commemorated the Paris Commune with a march through the city. They more than doubled that number just 2 months later on May Day. By Labor Day, 15,000 Jewish workers workers marched together. These public demonstrations showed the power of Jewish workers. By 1910, the United Hebrew Trades had swelled to 106 unions. 150,000 men and women were members, including thousands of Italians and other nationalities. By the 1930s, the United Hebrew Trades had reached its peak of 250,000 members. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
How nasty is the Republican Party's massive campaign to thwart democracy? Ask the good people of Florida. This was one of only 3 states that permanently took away the voting rights of felons who had completed their punishment. In 2018, though, a whopping 65% of Floridians voted for a state constitutional amendment that finally struck this malicious bit of legal ugliness from the books, thus restoring the political personhood of about 1 million people who had served their time. But, led by Ron DeSantis, Florida's right-wing goose of a governor, the GOP demanded that an appeals court of hyper-partisan federal judges overrule 2018's landmark vote by the people and slam the door once more on the rights of discharged felons. They're not entitled to vote, squawked these vindictive ballot suppressors, unless and until they've paid off the full amount of court costs and fees they were assessed. Money, asserted Republican leaders, must trump social justice, human decency, and political rights for those mostly indigent people who are unable to pony up $1,000 or so to vote. Even if ex-felons are regularly making payments to clear the debt, tough luck, say the Republican repressors, no vote until every penny is paid. It's a flagrant case of rigging the system to steal the votes of a low-income constituency generally inclined to support Democratic policies and candidates. It also amounts to an unconstitutional poll tax, made more intolerable by applying it to one class of citizens, largely people of color, specifically to disenfranchise them. This is Jim Hightower saying the court's 6-judge Republican majority, 5 appointed by Trump, cynically defied the U.S. Constitution and the Florida electorate. Yet, the people's battle for justice goes on. To stay connected, go to FloridaRRC.com.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the budget deficit for fiscal year 2020, $3.1 trillion. Now, think about that for a second when you compare it to the clip I played of Trump earlier of him saying, the Green New Deal is going to cost $100 million and we would never make that much money in 100 years. They spent $3.1 trillion more than we brought in this year alone, and $1 trillion each of the last couple too. It's not just because of the pandemic. We were going to have $1 trillion deficits no matter what. So for him to say 100 years, we're not going to, ludicrous. And again, the roid rage is strong with that one. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the state of the economy post Mike Pence's performance during the VP debate. I've asked our good friend Pedro DaCosta to come talk with us. Pedro is a senior reporter over at Market News. He's also a columnist at Forbes and Market Watch. Pedro, thanks for taking time for us.
My pleasure, Rick. How are you?
So, did you happen to see the big fly debate?
Oh, I sure did. The fly won.
The fly won, yes. As Pence really painted this extremely rosy picture of the economy, and I'll tell you, I wish I lived in that economy.
Well, it was an especially difficult picture to paint 6 months into, a recession, and especially a recession that's directly related to a pandemic whose response, he boggled himself because he is the head of the coronavirus task force. So, the administration had a fairly decent case about a strong economy, although we talked about this at the time. There were still lots of pockets of weakness, even when we talk about economic strength in this country, before the pandemic. But 6 months later, it's hard to find anything positive to talk about, including this whole notion that we're recovering much more quickly than people expected. Well, the expectations of what? Like,
Right.
we're still in a pretty deep hole. So
You know, he picked up. I'm glad you got that because he picked up on one of Trump's ticks. You know, nobody ever could imagine. People ask me how I do it. It's the most incredible ever. I mean, it's really kind of amazing how they have such sunny optimism.
strongest recovery of all time. Best everything. Yeah, it's an administration of superlatives, but they're fairly hollow given the economic data that underlies it at this point.
And that's the thing because you know they say that everyone on average, and you use the A word, average got a $4,000 tax cut. I didn't get a $4,000 tax cut. I asked some friends; they didn't get a $4,000 tax cut. I don't know where this money all went. Any clues of where my $4,000 is?
Well, I mean, if you go by the average, it actually went to the wealthiest people who were the focus of that tax cut. So the number may well be correct if you look at the average rather than the median. But that was clearly a tax cut that was focused on wealthy people, and which of course contributed to said deficit that you mentioned earlier that we came into this pandemic with.
So should we be concerned at this moment, 6 months into a pandemic, that there was a $3.1 trillion deficit for this year? And there's talk of, I guess now Trump has come around. He's kicking out the idea of another $1.8 trillion stimulus, which he claims is going to be the biggest number. It's going to be bigger than anybody else, even though the Democrats passed, what was a $3.4 trillion stimulus back in May.
So no, we shouldn't be scared about the deficit. First of all, we should the negotiation is really between Steve Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi. We should ignore Trump's pronouncements in either direction. I feel like it's a policy nightmare to pay attention to those signals. But we shouldn't be afraid of the deficit. In fact, the deficit is a direct result of the pandemic, and it's a healthy investment if it's spent correctly on the things that we need to get out of the pandemic. So actually the delay in getting a second fiscal stimulus is actually what's posing the greatest peril to the so-called, I don't like calling this a recovery because, a bounce back from a sudden, precipitous drop isn't really a recovery.
Right.
But the sort of mild rebound that we've had, is in peril because of the lack of action from Congress to help states and localities, which are getting hit really hard from every side, and to help workers who are, whose unemployment benefits have expired.
Do you find it as weird as I do that Senate Republicans seem to just are okay with going along with not having another stimulus plan and not helping people helping their constituents? I mean, when I was a kid growing up, it was all about who brought home the bacon. You had all of these pet projects, and you brought home the bacon. You got a bridge, you got a museum, you got a new school, you got all of this stuff. Everyone loves ribbon cuttings. Everybody loves giving stuff away. Is it weird that the Republicans won't take what the Democrats are saying? Here, take the win. Here, Mr. President, take a giant win. We're going to prop your economy up for you so the bottom doesn't fall out for all of us.
That's a great point. And I've thought this, I've had to kind of think this through because, on the face of it, it doesn't make logical sense for Republicans to oppose a fiscal stimulus when they themselves are in power in an election year, right? You would think this is classic political pork, handed to them. But to your earlier point, I heard you making a point about the polls. If you expect to lose and you want to hand the opposition a not so great set of economic fundamentals, then you might be thinking differently. And that's the only really calculus that makes political sense to me. It doesn't make humanitarian sense, but that's because as you said, the calculus is on the side of doing something rather than not.
No, I mean, it's just weird to me. And look, I expect Trump to be all over the map. Every day you expect him to do a 180 of what he did yesterday. And in fact, we've seen this with the stimulus. We're not going to do anything till after the election. Then the very next day, well, we're going to have a bigger one than anyone ever. It's going to be the biggest you've ever seen, the most fantastical. It's going to be fabulous and tremendous. And I'm waiting for tomorrow going, no, we're not going to do anything.
That's right. And this sort of reality show 180, day-to-day 180 buffoonery, it might be fine and it works. It happens on both fine people on both sides. Both parties do it. It happens. I especially think of it in the case of the debt ceiling negotiations, right? But those are much less, while they're very consequential, but much less consequential than actual relief to human beings during a pandemic and to businesses, run by human beings and which employ human beings. So this sort of 11th hour deal that might make this or that politician look good, it might make sense in other contexts, but when it comes to people's livelihoods and when people are actually going hungry and out of work and losing their health insurance, it's pretty cruel.
Yeah, now you're someone who follows this stuff, much closer than I do. Scorched earth mentality that they're going to take a bloodbath beating in November and that they're going to lose power in January and try and gum everything up. Do you see us spiraling that far down?
So, I actually think that, forget if Trump wins, I think that we're at risk of a severe, prolonged economic slump, which, you could call it depression or not, depending on how you define it, regardless of who wins the election. A Biden administration with a Democratic, sweep might actually, and Wall Street has actually been in part rallying because of this possibility.
Right.
That a Democratic sweep could lead to a stronger stimulus that might blunt some of the damage, but the damage is done. We have unemployment. Unemployment's already surpassed the peak that it hit in the last recession. We have entire sectors that have been wiped out. So the kind of adjustment that we'll need to make in this economy is kind of much deeper and prolonged. And we have as you know very well, not only do we lack a social safety net that allows people to get from point A to point B and to survive in the meantime, we also lack a kind of infrastructure for retraining people, for people to even go look to find jobs in different industries. And so I think we're going to go through a prolonged period of economic pain, regardless of who wins politically. So we should be doing everything we can to help people out as much as we can.
Yeah, you're right. I fear there are some industries that will never come back. And ultimately, China ends up being the winner in all this because they're the ones who figured out how to control this a little bit. And I don't know if they have or they haven't, but their economy's coming back. Ours just hasn't, and because we haven't figured out how to control it yet. And I'm expecting, because of Trump's miraculous recovery, I expect it to get much worse in the coming months, because I think now people are like, well, screw it. If Trump got it, there's a cure. We're fine. We can go ahead right through.
I wonder. I don't know what to be honest, I don't know what the public health impact of Trump's public stunts surrounding COVID are likely to be. I certainly think, his public stunts to date and his lack of, honesty about the virus to date has been damaging to public health and by association to the economy. But, who knows?
What's funny to me, and I saw this story, and you alluded to it a second ago, that Wall Street's kind of rallying around behind the idea of the Democrats taking control. Because I saw a story about Goldman Sachs in one of their most recent reports saying that it would be better for their bottom line, I guess, if Biden and the Democrats took over. Because, well, look at where we are. I'm waiting for Trump to do that 180 and then turn his back on Wall Street and say, well, they're rooting against us, even though all along he's been saying, look how wonderful Wall Street is and how great we are for Wall Street. I'm just waiting for that moment.
I wouldn't wait for that moment too hard. I think Wall Street might be the one constituency he doesn't turn his back on. He pays very close attention to the stock market. He stated publicly, which no president, ever should or rationally would, that the quality of one's presidency should be judged on the performance of the stock market. So I think that's one constituency that he'll be loath to upset. I think we've mentioned this. I've talked to you about this before. I covered the Fed. And despite the Trump administration's knack for appointing, for kind of degrading the civil service by appointing, either underqualified or openly incompetent people to key institutions, he hasn't done that to the one key institution that might affect the markets, which is the Federal Reserve. His appointments have been while right-leaning in nature, they've been kind of definitely within the ballpark, with the exception of Judy Shelton, and all within within the acceptable realm of central bank norms, because he didn't want to upset Wall Street. So
Yeah, I often wonder where he gets his appointment ideas from, because I don't think he goes out and vets a lot of people. I don't think he does a lot of homework.
well, when it comes to the economy, I think it's Larry Kudlow and Steve Mnuchin. I think it's a very small circle of people, and it's like a central casting kind of thing. You're my econ guy. Who's your econ guy, right? I think that's how he plays it.
Yeah, where I was going with that is I think he watches TV and he just pulls people off there. Did you happen to see the Showtime
Well, Larry
thing?
Kudlow, right? Larry Kudlow.
Exactly. Did you
got
happen to
him.
see the Comey rule on Showtime?
I did not. Actually.
There's a scene in there where Comey is having dinner with Trump and they're by themselves, and he just goes, I trust TV guys because TV guys have to get ratings, and that's his mindset. And it's often curious to me that he chooses a lot of people from that industry.
Well, I mean, CNN, for all its purported criticism of Donald Trump, is almost been like a job interview platform for candidates. People, I mean, I think people forget, but Kayleigh McEnany was just a CNN commentator. They're all CNN commentators, and Trump is like, how far on the limb will they go to agree with me? Like, how willing, and when they're willing to go all the way, he's like, you're hired.
Sold your soul, which is what we saw, Wednesday night with Pence. That's what it looks like when you sell your soul, right there.
Well, I'm not in the business of judging souls, but it's certainly what it's like when you kind of regurgitate. I mean, it was a much more eloquent regurgitation, by the way, of the platform.
Yeah.
But it was adherent to the party line for sure.
Yeah. So, do we get a stimulus before the election? Is McConnell wrong? Do you think McConnell will let it if Mnuchin and Pelosi agree to something?
I really don't know. I mean, I'm surprised by this last minute thing because I really thought it was done and dusted. I honestly don't see. I guess we could get one as a kind of desperate Republican move that we got something done if Republicans think it's going to help them in the election. But I just don't see who would, before everybody everybody had something to win from it. Now it just really looks like petty political pork, like 2 weeks ahead of an election. So to me, I think it's going to be, it probably happens somewhere between the election and the inauguration, which will be a very turbulent period, of course.
No, it's going to be interesting and ugly all along there. So what are you hearing, coming up in the next couple of weeks, coming out of our policymakers outside of this? I mean, are we just done?
Completely. I mean, and the fact that, I think we were already done when the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court vacancy and nomination, right? That pushed away. That seemed to actually, that's what kind of put the nail in the coffin on the fiscal negotiations. It seemed like that's going to take up all the oxygen in the room. And then, of course, there's Trump's diagnosis, and we live in this ridiculous 1 week news cycle in 24 hours kind of in a world. But that's where we're at. So there's nothing happening until the election, which means until next year, really.
That is scary stuff, and the sad reality is we've got the stories of millions of people losing their health insurance because that's going to come along the lines if Amy Coney Barrett is put on the court and they overturn the ACA. We're looking at a tsunami of foreclosures and evictions coming up soon. None of this stuff is good, and our elected leaders have done nothing to prepare for what is coming. And that's what's angering. It's not frustrating. It's angering as hell because all of this stuff is predictable.
Not to mention the very real prospect that we're talking about. You just talked about the economic stuff, but the very real and deadly prospect of a second wave that is actually hitting several of our states right now,
Yeah.
right? And so the same drama and fears and trepidations that we went through in March, we're going to go through it again and in a worse way because it's going to be an entire winter of it. So, and it didn't have to happen this way. We could be coming out of the other side of this already. So
We should be out of it already. But hey, at least we got a super spreader event tomorrow at the White House South Lawn.
That's just we're really through the looking glass there.
Unbelievable.
I can't believe this stuff is being allowed to happen by, there's so many layers of enabling at this point between the medical authorities and national security, and it's frightening.
It is absolutely frightening what this guy has done, and we've got a lot of digging and a lot of cleaning up to do on the other side. But Pedro, I appreciate the time. It's always great talking with you, my friend.
My pleasure, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Our good friend Pedro DaCosta. Make sure you check out his work over at Market News. We'll get links at how you can do that. He's a senior reporter there, also a columnist over at Forbes and Market Watch. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1823. That was the day abolitionist and women's suffragist Mary Ann Shadd Cary was born. Her parents were free blacks of color in the slave state of Delaware. They were involved with many prominent abolitionists and active in the Underground Railroad. The family moved to Pennsylvania, where Mary and her siblings were educated in Quaker schools. As a young woman, Mary became a teacher and returned to Wilmington, Delaware, where she opened a school for black children. Once the Fugitive Slave Law was passed in 1850, Mary and many other free blacks fled to Canada to safely continue their abolitionist work. She opened a school for fugitive slaves in Windsor, Ontario, just across the river from Detroit. Mary soon came under fire in the local press for insisting the school be racially integrated. She responded by starting her own newspaper, the Provincial Freeman. She and her husband Thomas often traveled to the United States to continue their anti-slavery work. They were present at John Brown's 1858 Constitutional Convention. Mary worked with Osborne Perry Anderson to publish his 1861 memoir, A Voice from Harper's Ferry. Anderson had participated in Brown's raid and was the lone African-American survivor. After her husband's death, Mary returned to the United States with her children to help recruit black soldiers for the Union Army. Once the Civil War was over, Mary moved to Washington, D.C. to teach. She enrolled in Howard University, where she earned a law degree. There, she joined the National Women's Suffrage Association and worked with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. She continued to advocate for civil rights and women's equality until her death in 1893. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, the Trump administration trying to do everything they can possibly do to change the topic, bring Hillary Clinton back. Yep, you didn't think we were going to get through this whole election without hearing about her damn emails, did you? I'm not making this up. Mike Pompeo says he's working diligently to release the State Department emails. We're gonna finally get her grocery list. We're gonna know what kind of yogurt she used to eat. We're gonna find out. Big scandal. And the news also today, outside of now we've got it's incredible how this works. This morning I woke up and I saw Billy Barr saying that Durham hasn't come out with any more indictments. They're not arresting anyone. They're probably not going to be finished with their big their big report on how Obama secretly nefariously, surreptitiously went behind everyone's back and concocted the whole Russia hoax. How Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, hired all those people for Trump's campaign with Russian backgrounds. Yeah, that. And how it was the Democrats, it was those evil Democrats who concocted this whole thing. And, I guess forced the meeting with Eric Prince in the Seychelles and forced, George Papadopoulos to do what he did, and forced the crazy guy who took a break from being the spokesperson of Health and Human Services from his contacts of being the spokesperson for Putin and Carter Page, and all down and freaking Rudy. Clearly, the Democrats forced all of those people to have Russian contacts. And, one of the things that I liked about the Comey Rule movie is there's a moment where, they're having this little banter with the FBI agents. And the one guy just goes to the other person and goes, how is it that this campaign has so many people with contacts to Russia? How is that possible? And I've talked to people who've run, presidential campaigns, and I've asked that, how is it that this one campaign had so many people? Because look, every campaign has somebody, maybe two people, but it seemed like everybody had some contact, some lines to Russia, and we find out that they were actively trying to have back channel conversations. They were actively trying to get them to hold off on retaliating against the country over Obama's sanctions. That's reality. In fact, Flynn should be in jail for that already, because they had the wiretaps. And me, I'm of the mindset, at this point, I want it all out. My problem with Bill Barr is doing and what Durham is doing is I don't think he's going to play ball. I don't think there's any there, and he knows there's no there, and so does Billy Barr, but they're not going to come out before the election and say, there's nothing. They're not going to do it. So they're going to continue down the we're turning over every stone. Well, we're working through the investigation. It's ongoing. When the reality is, at the end of this, there's no there. There's nothing there. There's no smoking tax returns, because Hillary's tax returns were public. There's no smoking email. Now they can put the emails out, and look, I'll look at them. I think we should see all of the information, because truth, and I said this from the very start, I don't care which side of this you're on. I want the truth. If someone in the Obama administration did something wrong, they need to be held accountable. If someone in the Trump campaign did something wrong, they need to be held accountable. If someone right now in the Trump administration is doing something wrong, they need to be held accountable. And I think every American wants that. The problem is we've now politicized the Department of Justice to the point to where I don't believe the Department of Justice. I don't believe the Trump administration at all. Not even a little bit. And this is a bad place. Now, what's going to happen is Joe Biden's going to win on November 3rd. He's going to become president on January 20th of 21. And immediately the right-wing spin machine is going to call him the most liberal ever, and they're going to do all the things that they did to Obama. That's coming. We just have to be prepared for that, because we still have cleaning up to do. It's amazing how, every Republican administration leaves behind such a mess. Every time a Republican leaves office, it seems I lose money. Every time their presidency ends, I lose money. First time I got laid off during the H.W. Bush years. During the W. Bush years. And now, thanks to Trump, I looked at my 401k. I'm going, holy bad. Sad stuff. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Bob Ney is going to be here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. Right back.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
Has been strengthening at a pretty robust rate.
Buckle up, Gulf Coast. Hurricane Delta is already a record breaker.
It's a disastrous new normal. catastrophic fires, once contained to one season, now a harrowing year-round battle.
Grim milestone in California's historic disastrous fire season. Poland says it will phase out coal, plus Airbus debuts zero-emission passenger airplanes.
Really?
Yeah.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Since 1930, 5 of the biggest fires out of the top 10 have been this year.
California is America fast forward, the postcard from the future.
Oh man, are you serious? California is basically a postcard from the future? That means the future is also on fire?
Yep. Sorry, Trevor.
And it also means that the post office is still functioning in the future, so I guess, woo, we did it.
Okay, Desi Doyen, we run through all the names in the alphabet for the storms, so now we're on to the Greek letters. I'm hoping there is not very many more because I know Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and I think I know Epsilon, but after that, I'm completely out.
Me too. But yes, Hurricane Delta has formed in the Caribbean and is on track to impact the central Gulf Coast of the United States. Delta is the earliest 25th named storm ever recorded in this historic 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. We're now into the Greek alphabet for storm names for only the second time on record. Delta formed more than a month earlier than the previous record 25th storm. That was back in 2005. The National Hurricane Center forecasts that Delta will rapidly intensify due to very warm ocean waters and has issued storm surge warnings from Texas to Florida. Delta could slam into beleaguered, storm-weary Louisiana, and if Delta makes landfall, it would be the first ever Greek-named storm to hit the United States. And it would be the 10th tropical storm to make landfall on the mainland U.S. this season, breaking the 1916 record of just 9 landfalling storms.
And we still got about a month to go in the storm season?
Actually, about 2 months.
Oh, boy.
A grim milestone in California.
So far this year, California has seen more than 8,000 wildfires, destroying more than 7,000 buildings.
The state's historic 2020 wildfire season, which shows no signs of slowing down, has now burned more than 4 million acres. That's more than 6,000 square miles, and it is more than double the state's previous record year. The 5 largest wildfires in California history have all hit this year and have killed more than 31 people in California and caused hundreds of billions of dollars in damages and economic losses.
And they tell us we can't afford to do anything about climate change.
In other news, a federal judge in Montana has ordered the removal of Trump's controversial acting director of the Bureau of Land Management, William Pendley. The judge ruled Pendley has been serving unlawfully for more than a year because he did not get Senate confirmation. Pendley advocates privatizing all of the public's lands, so of course Trump tried to put him in charge of the public's lands.
Is that the Law and Order president?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The court ruling could unravel some of Pendley's decisions. Oh, but don't worry, he's still there working in his old job.
Of course he is. Law and Order.
And also at the Interior Department, after stalling for months, a top Trump Interior official finally released a scientific study confirming the impact of oil development on federally protected polar bear populations in Alaska. The study shows that endangered polar bears are already being harmed by the loss of sea ice due to man-made climate change, but that climate change will open up more areas for oil extraction, which the study notes will also further harm polar bears. The study may slow down new oil exploration in parts of Alaska. In the coal industry, Robert E. Murray, the 80-year-old former CEO and president of bankrupt Murray Energy Coal Mining Company, who for years attacked federal mine safety regulations aimed at reducing terminal black lung disease among coal miners, and who disputed the health care claims of coal miners seeking treatment for black lung disease, has himself filed for black lung benefits.
Well, it's karma, but it's hard to be happy about that one.
But some good news.
Good.
Poland has signed an agreement with its coal mining unions to phase out coal entirely by 2050. Now, climate scientists say 2050 is too late, but policy experts say that the unions agreeing to an end date for the liquidation of Poland's coal mining industry is a huge development. The first time that Poland has put a timeline on ending coal, which accounts for about 75% of the country's electricity generation.
Really? I'll tell you. I always forget about Poland.
Finally, European airplane manufacturer Airbus has unveiled 3 new concepts for zero-emissions passenger planes that it hopes to launch for commercial use by 2035. The V-shaped Zero E's jet engine would use hydrogen as the primary fuel instead of kerosene, with onboard batteries to run it as a hybrid electric propulsion system.
Will it stay in the sky?
Yes!
It's witchcraft, I tell you. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I got to tell you, one of the weirdest moments in presidential history, I think, happened today. I guess we're taking this virtual medicine thing now serious, as the president had a virtual physical on Fox News today. I don't know where to go with that other than, really? This is what the circus has now become? Wow. Just wow. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top news of the day, our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst, Bob Ney. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
Have you ever seen such a thing?
I had a virtual medicine, not a physical, but I had a virtual, what do you call it, doctor's visit virtually. And because when I called the office, they said, have you coughed? And I was having some sinus problems. I said, yes. And they said, well, you can't come in. So I had a virtual, but all I talked about was my throat burning. So I guess that was okay.
Yeah, no, I've had things like that. Years ago, you just call the doctor and say, I'm getting my whatever this. I get upper respiratory infections religiously every year, and I know when it comes, and they usually give me, an antibiotic, and I'm usually better in a couple of days. That's one thing. But this seemed like a stunt to me. Of he's not getting an actual physical. He's not being actually evaluated. They're just asking a bunch of leading questions, and it just seemed all kind of hokey and stupid to me.
Right. I mean, it's not like it's electronic where you touch the screen and they can tell your pulse. So, yeah. I don't know what that's all about, or why even going through the phase of it to do it.
It's just crazy. Look, I'm a big fan of telemedicine. I think it's going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can get access to more people for simple things. I mean,
Sure.
sometimes I have mild things that, hey, I just need a script.
But not a physical.
Yeah, I don't need a whole workup. Hey, ask me how I'm doing. Things are good. Whatever. And you get whatever script you need and move on.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Sometimes the kids need just to go to the doctor because they've been off of school a couple of days. Hey, I need a doctor's note. Here's what we don't have to go through this whole hassle of trekking in. I think it's not a bad thing, but for this stunt, I'm struggling with.
Right. Like I said, it's a physical.
Just struggling with it. I wanted to get your thoughts on the tax issue now that seems to have popped up. Evidently. They're saying that Trump found a windfall of about $21 million, what they classified as a highly unusual one-off payment, because I guess he sold something from one of his hotels, and I guess he was badly in debt to the campaign, but he actually wrote it off as a business expense. And can you give yourself cash from your campaigns? How does the ethics in this work?
No, campaign, the main premise of campaign accounts is that you cannot use your campaign account for personal reasons and for personal benefit. Now, you can rent a car, you can lease a car, you can have a secretary that will take messages for you even when you're out of office. But to utilize anything campaign-wise and involving the tax code, I think, Rick, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
Unheard of. I've never, ever heard of anything like that, because you cannot mix campaign, again, for your personal use.
Right.
It's, it's for the ads, the cars, the staff, that type of thing. Now, it does stretch to where if I want to take a campaign supporter to a football game, can I buy tickets to the game? Sure. Can I write off those tickets? No.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can't, but you can't write off things for personal use. So if he did that, I can't understand how some finding hasn't been done against that.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of looking into at the end of this. Also, while we're talking about campaign financing and all this other stuff, there's a story that just broke on this Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon woman from Georgia. I don't know if you know who she is. Evidently, they're saying that she got a pretty sizable amount of money from the Paycheck Protection Program. Somewhere between $150,000 and $350,000. And they also say that, she donated about $450,000 to her own campaign. And there's some questions on, intermingling perhaps. How illegal would that be?
Well, the intermingling of funds, again, with this whole, and usually these are strict. You do something like this, the Federal Elections Commission, if somebody files a complaint or they look into routine audit, and usually this is very strict, but you can't take from one hand and give to the other and receive, some type of benefit from the Paycheck Protection, and then it sifts over into the campaign account. That you can't do, and this is all supposed to be clearly identified, so it's kind of murky as to, what she did and when she did it. And again, I would have to assume that this is going to be an election issue that the FEC would look into.
Yeah, I'm looking at her and I'm wondering how long before she goes to jail, because she seems like one of those people who wants to be in the Trump sphere where no rules actually apply to them, but she's not there.
Right, and again, with the FEC. Usually they're pretty strict. I know in our past history of campaigns, sometimes they went, honestly, Rick, overboard on minuscule, tiny things, So how these big picture things are escaping their preview, I don't understand that. No. I just wonder, usually you can't game the system with the FEC, but I'm just wondering why they have not cracked down on some of these quote loans and money shifting.
Nobody seems to be at the wheel anymore, and this again, is part of, in my view, the kleptocracy that I was anticipating all along with this administration. So there's part of me that goes, "Are you surprised?" The answer is obviously no. I'm not. I'm not surprised even a little bit. It just is what it is. I wanted to get your thoughts before we move along on the big debate. Outside of the fly, anything grab your attention?
No, I did see the fly like everybody on Earth did. No, I thought that, of course, look, I'm going to compare it to the presidential debate. So I thought it was quite civil. They're both of them, certain questions, neither one answered. So it wasn't just a matter of Kamala Harris on the Supreme Court. Pence also, avoided some questions. But I do think for the most part, though, it had a ring of semi-civility to it, semi-substance, to it compared to the presidential.
Yeah, well, compared to the presidential, I had just as long as they didn't hit each other. I think
right.
I think it seems civil. Yeah, I don't think it moved the needle. I think they did what they had to do. I think Harris won only because I think she came off a little bit better. I think that was kind of a big moment where she was front and center, and I think she rose to the occasion. And I don't think Pence hurt Trump at all. I think he did probably a really good job of putting lipstick on the pig that is this administration.
Well, that's a good analysis because Pence, I was amazed how he would be asked a question and he would go back to his mantra. I mean, it's a certain political skill, but he would go back to his mantra, not answering the question, but getting in what he wanted to. Yeah. And if, in fact, there was something negative on Trump and he was asked an additional question that had nothing to do with it, he would revert back to answer what he wanted to, you know. So, I mean, that in itself, I guess, is a good political skill. But overall, I thought she did quite well. And, you know, this is her first time, well, not in a debate, but it's her first time at this level of the stage. And I thought she did quite well, and I don't think she hurt herself, you know, whatsoever.
Yeah.
And she was very relaxed, very poised.
No, she was. I thought she did well. But yeah, other than that, like I said, the fly was there. The fly, you know, obviously got top billing.
Right.
But you know, as they, you know, but to your point about not answering the question, you know, as I was watching him, I was wondering if Sarah Palin's debate coach had been helping him, because if you remember when Palin debated, she goes, "I know you want to ask me questions, but I'm going to give you answers that I want," or something along those lines of, you know, I know you're going to ask a bunch of questions, but I've got things I got to say.
Mm-hmm. But you know, Pence, I served with Pence, and he was a governor, and you know, he's been around. He was, you know, through the system last time with VP debates, and he walked in there knowing that he was going to have to do a certain mantra because he was going to be asked so many things about Trump. And, you know, he kind of effectively just continued again to say what he wanted to say, when he wanted to say it about Trump.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, out of these debates come a bunch of polling, and one of the favorite ones that I keep getting, you know, people responding, well, she's going to be president anyway, so, you know, of course she's got to be better. And because there's this thought out there that, you know, Biden's going to, you know, on the 21st, he's going to go, I don't really want to do this, and he's going to leave the day after inauguration, which is ludicrous. But there's some of that thought going around, isn't there?
It's everywhere, and something that shocked me today, and I disputed this on another station I was doing. They were just double down daring that this whole 25th Amendment announcement by Pelosi today of the commission was strictly geared at making Kamala Harris president of the United States. And I'm like, no, this was aimed. The barbs were out there, you know, indirectly or directly with Trump. And they said, no, we think that, you know, and they, by the way, these people, they weren't anti-Biden, but they were just like, yes, this is because, you know, they're going to do some kind of plot to make Harris the president. I hear this all the time. Joe Biden is not going to get elected and then all of a sudden say, well, you know, I'm kind of tired out. It's been a couple of tiring years, and I'm just going to turn it over. You know, if he decides not to run again after 4 years, that's one thing.
Right.
If he gets sick, that's another. That's, you know, things happen. But he's not going to turn around and just say, okay, now it's your turn. I've had a year. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Now, you brought up the 25th Amendment thing. You know, it's obviously not going to go anywhere.
No.
But I got to tell you, I think it took some stones to say, you know, look, there's something going on here. Clearly there's something going on with Trump. I mean, clearly the roid rage is strong with him. He looks like he's devolving right in front of us. Do you think that was a smart move or not?
I think it was okay. Probably, I mean, the timing of it, I would like to have seen it a little earlier, frankly.
Yeah, 3.5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, I think by the speaker could have been brought up earlier. So bringing a closer election looks like it's, well, you know, it's political, but it proves the point because now the discussion goes towards Trump. So, you know, doing it now raises the issue, and I think that she's, you know, has no fear or hesitation to throw it out there.
Yeah, because if you listen to his interview with Hannity yesterday, and the 2-hour free infomercial they did this morning or this afternoon on Rush Limbaugh's show, clearly there's some things going on there.
Well, look, the entire thing's coming unraveled. 2 months ago, you know, I was saying, and a month ago, that it's going to be a tight election. Now, I still think it could, you know, be somewhat narrow, but right now, Biden's ahead. It's Biden's to lose.
Right.
Even if you look at the Electoral College today, if you this is just in my opinion, that Biden's at about 290, in my opinion.
Right.
Now I'm saying Arizona's going to flip to blue.
Me too.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. And that's my 290. But anything can happen. So Biden people aren't going to let up. But inside the Trump campaign and Trump, it's coming unraveled. Things that are going on are becoming strange. The parade, leaving the hospital for the parade in itself was unreal, and every day there seems to be something else, and so it's just not there right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, and then tomorrow going to have this big super spreader event, hundreds of people on the South Lawn, and then Monday back into the having the big rallies. I guess that's happening, and for me, the other part of this and the scarier part is that for the next couple of months, I truly believe they're going on like there's nothing to worry about. That we've got a cure, everything's going to be fine, and the message that they're going to keep sending out to their supporters is we're past this.
Right.
Or am I misreading this? I mean, do you think I'm misreading this?
No, I mean I think they've got there's a point here he tried to make, but it wasn't effectively done. As far as leading your life, yes, you have to lead your life. You don't need to, unless you're, extremely ill, you don't need to be in a fortress and never walk outside or anything like that. I mean, I think to say that, to basically be cautious and relax, I think that's cool. I think it's okay. But they're not saying be cautious and relax. They're saying relax. And that's not good.
Yeah, well, no, they're saying even more than that. God gave me this. And this is a blessing for God. In fact, I'm better than I was before I had COVID. Thank goodness for COVID, because I'm better now. And you go, that's kind of the wrong messaging in my view.
Well, that is. It's bad messaging, and especially when the president said, that don't be afraid of this. Well, frankly, if I get COVID, I'm going to be afraid of it because I'm going to be cautiously, as I should be, afraid of it.
Right.
Now, I'll fight it. I'll listen to the doctors, but I'm not going to be like, oh, okay. Hey, Rick, wanted to call you today. I got COVID. How's that? That's great. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be worried.
We're going to have a COVID party, and they're going to invite all your friends over and get them sick too. But isn't that the thought that some of his advisors are pitching though? Back when I was a kid, and I'm guessing it was the same for you. If someone in the neighborhood had chicken pox or mumps or measles or any of that stuff, here, go play with so and so.
Right, that's true.
You get sick too. I believe they think that this is much like that stuff. That we're gonna have big COVID parties and everyone's gonna get sick, and that's the only way we get past it.
Yeah, the herd immunity theory.
Yeah, but how many people do you bump off in the process? And maybe that's part of it as well.
Right. I mean, so again, the attitude was cavalier. I think he could have turned it into a positive thing by saying, look, this is, I got it, and you got to be careful. I think he could have been positive about getting it. I really do, but he wasn't.
It could have been a teachable moment, but it's turned into
absolutely.
It's turned into a circus, and look, it's turned into it's not a big deal. In fact, he claims that he did it on purpose. That because any leader would do that.
That's the one. I'm glad you brought that up because I remember when he made a statement that I was kind of shocked by, and I was trying to figure it out, and I figured it out, and it's kind of scary when he said it's up to the leader to do this.
Right.
And I thought, what does that mean?
It means completely lost his mind. And finally, I wanted to get some of your thoughts on the Billy Barr story today with Durham, the prosecutor. It's my view there's nothing here. It's my view they've got nothing, and this is just a stall before they tell us they've got nothing. But you're usually better in tune with this stuff. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was saying this earlier on a station. There's some sexy, spicy, we call it, how politics is, little sexy, spicy stuff. There's probably a few tidbits in there.
Sure.
That's it. There's no bombshell. There is no bombshell. That's why it's being moved to after the election. If you look at the stories you and I talked about a few weeks ago, Barr was, he was going to have it by Election Day. It's going to come out. He's analyzed it. He's looked at it. A couple little sexy, spicy things, no bombshell. And that's why it's held.
Well, that's what I said. There's no there, and it isn't what they were hoping for. But we find out today, they're talking about, Pompeo saying we're going to release her emails. So I guess her emails are now part of this campaign too?
Right, exactly. It never stops with the email. Never.
I guess you got to go what got you to the dance, right?
Yeah, right. But it will not have an effect. It will not have an effect.
Now, it's just one of these moments where you go, Russia's, again, front and center in this stuff on the discussion part, but they're in a little bit of chaos too, aren't they?
Oh, they sure are. They're in three battlefronts, basically. Russia's having some problems. I mean, Putin is a master at a chess game, but even Putin has his day, and right now his hands are full, with this, Azerbaijan and Armenia alone. There's a lot of big problems over there, and Russia. These are the former, parts of the former Soviet Union. So, he's got his hands full.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I was really hoping that they would come out with something before the election so that we could be done with this. But I guess, well, maybe not. Anyway,
Yeah.
Bob, as always, I appreciate the time. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Our good friend Bob Ney. Look, that's just where my mind went this morning when I saw this. I see this story about Barr in Durham, and there's nothing there. And he's right. There's going to be something. They did have that one guy who changed an email. They were able to indict him, one guy. The change, I don't know. Did it completely change the whole course of events? No. Carter Page was somebody that had relations with Russia. Our CIA knew it. Our FBI knew it. Was he an informant? Was he working with them? Yeah. But do you trust them? No. I don't trust any of them. And now you've got Trump tweeting out that Michael Flynn was entrapped. Here's the thing. When you call a foreign agent that our government is already tapping their funds, and this is one of those things where you go, how stupid are you? That you would, without question, call a foreign agent, as he did, and tell him, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. And then lie about that. Whatever the FBI agents were thinking when they brought you in my view, doesn't matter. And this goes back to things I tell my kids. If authorities pull you in, if you get the police pull you in and they start questioning you, you have the right to remain silent. Use that right. Use it often. You have the right to counsel. Use that right. It's amazing to me that someone like Flynn, not smart enough to understand that he should shut up and get a lawyer. But these are people who think that they're smarter than everybody and that they can talk their way out or game their way out of a system. And he got caught. But what's amazing to me is that these people still aren't in jail. Which points me to my last bit. Remember Representative Chris Collins got nabbed for insider trading? Convicted months ago to 26 months in prison for insider trading and for lying to the FBI. He's actually been able to put off his sentence nearly 9 months now. 6 times he's been able to push off. The feds are now saying, nope, time for you to go to jail. You're scheduled to go on October 13th. They're begging to do it on December 8th. No, I say October 13th. You should go to jail like the rest of us would. This is the problem with the privileged and the well-connected. If it's you, if it's me, they take us right away. And this is where when the right wing, sends around their everyone should follow the same laws, I'm with them. I'm with them 100%. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com, that's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What a crazy week it has been, but we're still ticking down till Election Day. And as I said, if you're not registered, do it. If you can do a mail-in ballot, grab it. hand delivered if like I did if you have to. But you gotta register and you gotta vote this November. That's the only way we turn things around. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.